Happy to be here, everybody. We're here kicking off a great FinTech All About UX workshop. My name is Peter Van Hengel. We have some of my colleagues at Invesco who will introduce themselves. We're actually waiting for one more to join. So fingers crossed his computer uncrashes at the last minute. Of course, that's the way it works. If not, we'll forge ahead. But in any case, I'm Peter Van Hengel. I'm the head of engineering for emerging technology, strategy, innovation, and planning at Invesco. I have responsibility for our UI UX function, which we're going to talk a lot about today, full stack engineering capability, and our AI ML machine learning capability. There's Joe, just in the nick of time. So maybe, Joe, if you're ready to introduce yourself, you can go ahead, and then we'll go around to Aaron and Heather. Or maybe, Aaron, you can go.
And we'll I can go until Joe's ready. Hey, guys. My name is Aaron Luring. I am the lead UX designer on the strategy, innovation, and planning group at Invesco. I've been there for about a year now. Before that, I was working as a UX manager in the insurance world.
Hey everyone, my name is Heather Weed. I work with Peter and Aaron on Invesco's strategy, innovation, and planning team. I am a principal analyst and have historically been responsible for communication. A secondary role that I've had at Invesco has been a member of our core team for our institutional client experience program. And through that program, we've really tried to drive design thinking and testing and prototyping as a way of working to help drive initiatives forward. But yeah, so excited to be here and happy to have everybody on the line. And now I will kick it over to Joe. Joe, you there? I think Joe might be having technical difficulties.
Audio might not be running here. Let's see. Joe, can you hear us? We can hear you clicking. I think that's you clicking. Okay. Well, hopefully Joe figures his situation.
There he is.
Oh, there he is.
Joe, can you hear us? Okay. Well, Peter, why don't you kind of let the audience know what's going on in the session, and hopefully Joe will figure out his issues.
Yeah, excellent. Good. So, we're going to run a bit of a workshop. Obviously, that's what this session is all about. So we want to demonstrate some good techniques and things around UX and the importance of good UX in the design process. I wanted to take a couple minutes and just sort of talk to you a bit about how we use UX at Invesco. And then hopefully we'll be able to have Joe join us and introduce himself somewhere along the way, and then we'll dive right into the workshop. So as far as where we use UX at Invesco, it's become a real cornerstone of our innovation design thinking process. Everything begins with a problem statement. So many of the innovation efforts that we work on really are hearted at a business problem, and that should be near and dear to everybody on the call today. Really empathizing and understanding with your users and the clients of whatever it is you're building, technology, process, code. I think one of the key aspects for us and our team really is building that empathy and trust with the users. And one of the things that really destroys trust, honestly, is a failure to deliver and meet expectations. And so that can come in a couple of different forms. One is just failing to understand what the problem is and not asking them why enough. The second form of failing is really just around lack of delivery in a reasonable time period. So, I always kind of say we want to get from ink to code really fast. getting the ink and wireframing and testing before we write code is really important. But if you get drawings and wires that you can't implement and you can't roll out in a reasonable period of time, users get equally frustrated, and sometimes the window for opportunity just passes. So we use that process extensively within strategy, innovation, and planning at SIP, and we've had some pretty cool successes out of it. We've built a virtual assistant to enable our sales team to get to information very quickly. We learned through user interviews and some of the process that you'll see that it's not always about voice. It's not always about a bot. Sometimes it's about being able just to simply tap to information in 3 clicks, because you don't always want a virtual assistant up when you're in a meeting. Sometimes it's not appropriate. We use machine learning for portfolio management, which it's an interesting concept to figure out how you apply a design system to that. How do you bring machine learning AI models to life in an understandable and easy way for our users to understand? We've all experienced this. Well, most of us probably have experienced this, especially with all the takeout ordering. But when you're trying to decide what's for dinner and you get that little pop-up from Grubhub or whatever app you use saying, "Hey, you feeling like sushi tonight? Hey, you feeling like pizza tonight?" That's because they've figured out a way to take a machine learning model and bring it to life in a meaningful, transparent way. And that's really what this is all about. How do we simplify complex systems, understand and empathize with our users, ask them why, so we can deliver and engineer and use the component libraries and design systems to quickly iterate and solve their needs. So Joe, you're not on. Okay. Well, we're going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to introduce, if Joe joins, he can hop back in, but I'm going to introduce a problem statement that we're going to work through to demonstrate kind of in an abstract sort of way how a good design session might go. Some good questions, some techniques that you might want to ask to follow. So I'm going to play the role of the product owner. Aaron, do you want to introduce your role, and Heather?
Sure. I'm going to be playing the role of the designer, and hopefully I can show you guys a little bit about a better UX process today to tackle something like a problem statement in order to find new ways to speaking with the user on how to ideate on different ideas. And I think we also lost Peter, but then also just like a lot of different steps before you actually start any of the design process.
Yeah, and I'm going to be playing a role of a user today, so I'm going to be providing some real-life feedback for the team so they can take it back and potentially integrate that into their design process.
Cool, excellent. I'm back. Hopefully you can still hear me. I'm not sure what happened with the screen share. So I'm going to introduce our problem statement. And I'm going to put a totally different hat on from my day-to-day. And today I am a product owner, and I'm going to be building, asking for some design help from Aaron. And we're going to be launching this new remote-controlled car. And it's really great for our company. And we're going to walk through kind of some ways to problem solve and understand, ask me some questions and empathize with me around making this new remote control really impactful for our company.
Okay, that sounds good. It sounds fun and challenging. I'm gonna share my screen. And I guess let's just start from there. So a lot of times when a designer is approached with a problem, the first thing they want to do is jump straight into design. And the problem statement was to build a remote for an RC car. And Peter, what was that about, helping the business, or that so the remote can?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's a good question. I think we've had a couple of really good product launches in the past, but they really haven't stuck. And I think what we're doing with this particular car is really we're going to sell so many more of them. And we put a lot of design and effort into the actual car, and it's really fast and nimble. So we want a remote that can really be in the user's hands and just and get them addicted to this thing. And we want to sell. We have goals for double the number of sales from the last launch 2 years ago.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, as I was saying, a lot of times like a designer would just want to jump in and just start, designing something that they've seen in the past. Like this is a very shoddy looking remote, but they just jump in and start designing what the first thing comes to mind. But Peter just told us a couple of things that we can lean on, and that was from a business perspective. So they really want a remote that sticks with the user. Did you say you want to double growth as well too, Peter?
Yeah, I think from a goals perspective, we really want this this product. We think this product will be double. I mean, the market is good for remote control cars right now. Technology's come a long way, so I think we can get double. And there's more. There's more in the pipeline too. So if this works, we might want to think about how we could leverage it in the future too.
Okay, that sounds good. So can you tell me about the RC cars in the past? And so when I work with a PM, I really like to establish a relationship with them, and that means taking them out of just somebody who writes requirements, but also leaning on them to come up with the ideas and like explore our why. Like, why are we building this? How can we build it better? And help me really come up with ideas to like innovate on the problem statement rather than just building a remote control car. So Peter, can you tell me about the cars the remotes in the cars in the past?
Yeah.
Why do you think they didn't stick?
Yeah, well, I think it's hard for me to say exactly why they didn't stick. I mean, I know me personally, just the time that just didn't have the time to came home. It was like a novelty item, and there's really just not a lot of interaction beyond it just being a novelty item. So that was kind of one. I felt like what I heard from users, friends and people, just that they really liked the design of the car. They needed to be a little bit faster, but the remote was difficult to use. And every time we came out with a new car, the remote would change. And that was, I know I've heard that a couple of times. So maybe we should just use the last year's remote on this car, but it doesn't seem, like a great idea. I don't know.
So, Aaron and Peter, we have some participation from the audience right now.
Mm-hmm.
So Manny has made a comment that we need to think about the actions of the archetypes. And then Rose has also said, she's asked a question, and maybe you guys can speak to this, but she said, are user personas still useful?
Oh, absolutely. And I think once we kind of define the problem statement and then we speak to the user, we can start to build that persona around our use case. And Heather, I think right now would be a great time to get you involved.
Yeah, so Rose also asked, why are we talking about a remote for a car? So Peter, if you want to recap kind of the problem statement and why we set up this use case, that might be helpful for the audience, just in case people joined late.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Why are we talking about a remote control car? Well, we wanted to find a problem statement that could span across industries. Obviously, most of us in this track, fintech, try to focus our energy on financial services applications and to the likes of those. But there's a lot of similarities between and abstract, and we're not getting hung up in the details, and the car. So we're trying to demonstrate using this car example how we might be led down different paths, like from myself as a product owner perspective, or as we're about to hear from Heather, a user of the car. She might be able to answer some bigger questions that I can't.
Yeah, so Aaron, if you want to talk about my perspective as a user, let me give you a little bit of context about my experience in the past. So I'm actually a remote control car enthusiast, and while I bought the original car for my child, I found that I enjoyed playing with it also. So it's important to me that some of the features that I think I noticed were missing come to light in this conversation.
That's great. I'm just taking some notes. So can you tell me about your experiences working or using the car with you and your child?
Yeah, for sure. So I know my kid loves it, but I have to be honest that the past remotes felt a little small and kind of clunky for my adult hands. I wish that there was something that was a little bit better to use, that was maybe a little more sophisticated or fit my hand better.
Okay. And how was your kid's experience with the remote, though?
I think the kids love it, but I gotta say that them not being responsible adults, that losing the remote became an issue. So yeah, we had a couple, and they got lost, and we ended up having to replace them. And I gotta say that those replacement remotes start adding up.
At what point did you, or how many times did you replace the remote?
We replaced it twice.
And after the 2 times, did you just stop wanting to replace it because of cost, or because your kids got bored with it? So what was the reason for not replacing it again, if you did need to replace it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I have to say that overusing it in the time that we did, it did end up getting a little repetitive and boring. We used it as much as we could, but then kind of fell out of favor just because it can only do one thing. You can really only keep track or you couldn't really keep track of the races, and all we could do is drive it around straight, and it just kind of lost its appeal after a while.
Okay. And from a car enthusiast, what type of features do you think you would like to see in a remote control car that would really kind of help you, like, stick with the car company, keep using it, or maybe something that your kid has mentioned in the past?
It's interesting. I think it would be cool if there could be new features that come up without having to buy a new car. So, for instance, we said that the car only goes back and forth or in a straight line, basically, or something where we could keep track of the races that we were having, so we could play with other friends, maybe. I just feel like there's so many things that we could do to make it more engaging for myself, and even with my kids, and then with other people.
Yeah, this is really good so far. Peter, do you have
So,
any other questions for the user?
Yeah, I think this has been really really helpful, Heather. Thanks for sharing all these great insights.
of course,
Um,
we actually have another question from the audience, you guys.
yeah,
So,
I was about to
yeah.
raise that as well from Rose about limiting your ambitions, and I think. Um, from a user's perspective right now, we're widening. We're just doing our discovery, right? We're understanding and empathizing and listening. So I think it's important as we begin to solution, we want to rationalize, right, or scope limit down. But it's important to really let Heather kind of let her mind go, because that's the tidbits of information that we want to get early on. So kind of shifting back to the product owner role, Heather, I'd love to hear more about why keeping track of your friends and race history is important. We never really thought about that. We've heard that from a corporate point of view, and in fact, our our our, our marketing department had suggested a while ago that maybe we build an online portal or something. Um, have you ever seen that? I mean, I know they've started to do some work in that area. Have you been to our website at all to register on that?
I have not been to the website yet to register. I wasn't aware that you guys were doing it, so it's good to know. I think it's important to keep track of the races because it just introduces like this fun element of competition, and I can bring more people in, and we can keep standings amongst ourselves. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm a pretty competitive person, and I like to hold that over my friends sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Another audience question worth talking about would be virtual interviews versus survey platforms. A combination of the two. In fact, we're going to be doing a polling the audience in just a minute or two here. Around ranking some of the features. So obviously, Heather's only one person on the call, client, but we would ideally want to replicate this many, many times. But we'd love for some audience participation if you wanted to add some features into the chat of things that you might feel are important. We're going to take a selection of the ones that Heather has brought up, and Aaron has jotted down, and I, as well as whatever the audience feels. And we're actually going to do an interactive form of dot ranking or polling exercise to try to force rank some of these features to bubble some up to the top.
Yeah, and like Peter was saying, I think as far as user interviews goes, I think they're key to have us gain insight into the user's personal experience to uncover problems. But then when you have like a broader scope of questions that you've narrowed down, kind of like asking which features the users would prefer or getting their preference on one choice versus another, that's when really the polling or the mass questioning comes in handy, when you have a broader user base to ask. But right now we're just kind of getting to the ideas and to the meat of the problem by really diving into how the user's personal experience and how they use it and how their kids use it. So Peter, I think we're good. I know we're short on time.
1 second, Aaron. Hang on. The CEO, he just called. He's on the phone right here.
Okay.
He said he actually just called me, and he said he wants to actually also do a helicopter in the same time frame. Gee, I don't know how we're going to. I mean, I was just thinking we were going to have a remote and maybe launch this new website, but we have to think now how to do this. A helicopter launch. Oh boy, this is going to be really, really difficult.
Okay.
Wow.
And that is a new challenge, but is he expecting the remotes to be the same?
No, I mean, I could call him, but I think we just, we heard from Heather. how the remote's new features and being able to locate them. Like maybe we can just try pitching the same remote for both. I don't know. It's worth a
I
shot.
don't know if it will be the same remote yet. So that really throws a wrench into the plans because I believe if anybody's ever used a helicopter, I feel like the controls might be a little bit different than a car because you have the up and down and then the directional pad itself versus the car is more of like a speed or gas pedal control type and then the directional pad itself. Okay, but that's something that we can kind of ideate around.
So Aaron, we've got a couple of questions from the audience. So Rose is saying, in practice, she thinks that the company designing the remote or putting out the product would have their own agenda in terms of the things that you guys want me to want. And then let's say Peter's company would have strengths that they would want me to require. If she were the product manager, she would want to steer me towards adding machine learning or AI. And she says, is that immoral? I don't think it's immoral. I think that companies do have their own agendas, but I will pass to Peter and Aaron, who can speak towards serving the client experience. And at Invesco, I know that that's a big thing for us, is we want to be seen as the most client-centric asset manager. But let's bring it back towards this use case. Peter and Aaron, if you guys want to talk about that question.
I think that's a good question. And for me as the UX designer, I always want to build the best products for our user, because you can build something that meets all of the business requirements and the business goals. But at the end of the day, if you're building something that isn't specifically tailored for the user, that they want and that they need, if it doesn't solve their problems, and if it doesn't, if it's not something built specifically for them, then it's just not going to work. It's not going to be adopted, and I feel like the product will fail, even though it's tailored to business goals. But you also have to kind of bake in the business goals as well, because at the end of the day, they're signing off on the project, and it's coming out of somebody's budget. So you need to account for that too. As the designer, you should always fight for the user as much as you can, but it should become a balance. Peter, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, Aaron, I think you said it well. I guess in my head, I keep hearing platform, system, right? And those that know me, most of you probably don't know me, but I feel like when we talk about my company, and in this case, we're a car company, well, what are we really talking about here? I said my CEO called, I want to launch a helicopter, right? If we think about our product as widgets and being able to glue these design components together and make those appeal to our customers, the permutations and combinations of the system and a platform to reassemble and rejigger these systems to produce new things makes us much more agile. And so if we think about some of the things that Heather was saying as a customer and boil those into components, right? Maybe we can think about the way that we deliver differently. When you in the question Rose posed, are we a UX shop? Well, if we could go hire a UX shop to go do it, but what we really want out of the UX process is components that we can assemble to achieve business needs now and in the future, because it's really easy to solve the immediate need and empathize with Heather to get this one out. But what we really want to try to do is broaden our thinking a little bit and say, what do we need to do now for our MVP and get that in through the force ranking process versus what we want to try to do later and add to our component library so we can do helicopters, cars, boats, planes, trains, you name it.
Yeah, I would just add to that it's fun and easy and sexy almost to want to steer people towards the latest technology. But if you really look about necessarily to know that is what's powering it, as long as I'm getting the results that I kind of want to make me adopt it. So just another way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Oh, we have another question. Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, going back to Rose, I see another one from Rose, which is really great. Around machine learning, AI, ML. I use it all the time. You get the pop up telling you what you want for dinner when you're probably hangry and in a fight with your significant other about what to actually eat, right? And you kind of chuckle. I think using machine learning, AI, ML. It's one thing to build an algorithm. It's another thing to build the algorithm to keep people coming back. Right. Hey, Heather, you haven't played in a while. Hey, Heather, your ranking is falling. We think you might want to play now because many of your friends are racing online. Do you want to join them in a race? Right. And we can tie those kinds of concepts, using machine learning and pushing information out to our users back to just about any domain. If we think about virtual assistant within asset management, we've started to do it to a certain extent. Being able to make recommendations and learn from patterns, usage patterns, all those sorts of things.
So we have one other question from Kevin, which says, any tips on preventing watering down components or elements of the solution in order to make them extensible for other business units?
Good question. Aaron, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I was writing the features. What was the question?
You're fine.
Kevin was asking about essentially diluting our component or elements of one solution in order to make them extensible for another. So again, I go back to system. Let's not build a remote. Let's build a collection of things, right? And so I guess where do you find the balance between making something too generic that it's too hard to adapt versus too specific that it can't scale?
I always think about components and like a component library as this living, breathing thing that needs to adjust to your specific needs. So trying to keep something very broad and flexible when you need something specific doesn't always work. You need to kind of design things for all situations, and you should have the flexibility to tailor something to be very specific and granular to fit your exact needs, but keep it broad enough in a sense where you can use it in many different scenarios just by tweaking it slightly.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if maybe we can take those those feature ideas, Aaron, that you have there, and let's see if we can load those into a poll. Maybe what we can do is go in, we can copy and paste. Let's see.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of run through them. So here are the potential features and ideas that we came up with through speaking to the PM and the user. And we learned from Heather that the remote size fits her kid's hands well, but she's a car enthusiast herself, and she wants it to be a little bit more form-fitted to her. So we can't really just focus on building a remote just for a child. Her kid also loses her remote a lot, so maybe we can build a feature that helps track lost remotes. She says that maybe we could have the ability to use old remotes. So if she bought a car in the past, if she loses the remote for her new car, maybe we can find a way to have the technology to use the old remote without having her to buy a new one, because those are getting costly. She wants the ability to add new features without buying a new car. So this links back to how she was saying that it kind of gets boring after a while and a little repetitive. And how do we build in new features once the car has lost its appeal, but without having them buy a new car? The idea for a fun social element for competition came up. maybe the ability to track race times, the same remote, using the same remote for the helicopter and the cars. This way, we don't have to come up with two different products, a remote control for the car versus a remote control for the helicopter. If we can somehow build one that fits both products, we can save our time and energy for design and development, but then also we save the business money by not having to create two models, and the CEO will be happy about that. And then something interesting that Heather had said when you asked her a question, Peter, was that she has never been to our website. So that's not great. So how do we get our users to our website in more of like kind of like an organic way to hopefully sell more products and cross-sell other cars, maybe the helicopter when it comes out. So yeah, how do we link back to our website with whatever we build? Yeah, so maybe we can poll and see which features the users or our audience thinks would be best.
So the poll is open and live, so we encourage everybody for the next minute or so to get in your responses as to what you think are the best features or the most important. So go ahead and participate. We encourage it. And while we are waiting for the results on the poll, we have a couple of, so people are asking, how do you get to the poll? So if you're in your chat window, there should be an option up at the top next to chat that says polls, and that's where you can answer the poll for those of you that just joined. And then we have a couple of other questions while we wait for people to answer the poll. So Rose wants to know, are we using Agile for the UX design process?
Yeah, within our squads, we have embedded the UX function along with our product owner function. So I think the best way that at least I've sort of learned is you have to tackle the UX product owner discovery at the beginning, but having everybody along in that, the squad along, really helps get diversity of thought. But before you do that, you really need a solid design system. Because if you're going to scale UX across multiple squads, you need some consistency across them. Aaron, I'd love to know your thoughts. I mean, you're neck deep in this on many of the products that we're working on.
Yeah, I think like the way that I think Agile is extremely important, even for something like this. And it kind of just shows, like, to me, Agile is a working process. It includes collaboration with different groups to uncover potential pain points and roadblocks before we even start to build or design a product. A lot of the times, if you're thinking about waterfall, the designer would go off and I would just start designing something without really trying to uncover different solutions, empathize with the user, and talk with a PM with for different pain points, or an engineer to see if we can even build something like this. So, like, if we approach this problem like collaboratively and in small pieces, we can kind of figure out before we even start to do any design what we should actually build. And if you notice from this, we haven't actually done any design. We've just done a lot of writing. So you're kind of asking, like, where's the UX in this? And the UX, like, a lot of the time, like, a lot of UX isn't just user interface design. That's only one part of that. It's a lot of the UX is the thinking, the problem solving, and the uncovering of the solutions. And I think that kind of Agile mindset really helps when tackling a problem like this.
So thanks, Aaron. We have a couple minutes left. I'm conscious of the time. I don't know if you guys can see the poll results, but it looks like tracking for lost remotes ability to add new features without buying new car, and adding fun social elements were the top 3 features, and then the 4th one was a way to get users to the website. So keeping the results of the poll in mind, do you guys just want to quickly wrap up kind of how we would have approached the problem and solved for it?
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely being conscious. We have just a couple minutes. I think it's an interesting outcome, both from a product owner perspective, right? Like I wouldn't have expected the social element and getting people to our website. I think that we uncovered a real nugget there. Perhaps, and if we had more time, we would begin to solution and drill in on how would we do this? How would we do each one of these things? Maybe do some sketches around it, like how do we relate or a new remote control to our website? I'm beginning, dingers are going off in my engineering head, which is maybe the remote is an app, or your phone is inside the remote and it's interactive, and you begin to have competitions. And even if you're not in the same place, you can race with somebody on a virtual track, or add machine learning in to figure out, how is your hand motion going, all that sort of stuff to get people engaged. But we definitely are right at the big part of the discovery. And had we had more time, which you need a lot of, it's very hard to get this down into 40 minutes or less. Try like 4 or 5 days, sometimes weeks, to do this properly. Really start refining in on each of the top features. Heather, Aaron, anything else to add?
Yeah, I'll just add that. Yeah, so just kind of wrap this up, like the collaborative process and speaking to the PM, speaking to the user. I think just looking at this, the problem statement which we took, which originally was build a remote for an RC car, we generated so many ideas and features. And in my mind, now that I'm thinking, instead of just building a physical remote, I love the idea, Peter, that you came up with of building an app instead. So maybe we could build, I don't know, some sort of plastic remote that the phone slides into, so the plastic controller fits the hand well, but then we utilize like a digital app interface because there's like people, so that fits so many hands better. It's easy. People don't often lose their phones. They don't need to use old remotes because they can simply just download like maybe a different plugin or something if they have a new car or a helicopter, and we can add features later on more easily just by doing updates and downloads, and then we can link them back to our website from the app itself. So I feel like that would be the better solution, and we cover a lot of basis points, and we wouldn't have come up with those ideas if we hadn't kind of discussed this with different groups. And if I had just gone off and designed on my own, the remote would have probably been a physical product and nothing like the ideas that are churning from our conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I'd love to
We're getting the wrap it up sign in the back.
Wrap it up here, but definitely wanted to thank Techstars for the opportunity to have the 4 of us speak. There are 4 of us, believe it or not. We apologize about Joe's technical difficulties. We'll go beat him up after. If you want to reach out to any of us, we're happy to take questions. Follow-ons, LinkedIn is probably the best way to get a hold of us. I think most of us are on there. We can put our links in the chat window. But we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Don't forget to check out our booth at the expo.
Oh, the booth. Check the booth out.
Thanks. Bye.